Okay, is this book better than The Call of the Crocodile? This is the opening clip of this episode. I'm saying it. I mean, frankly, it's about the same. It just goes in a completely different direction. It's like the Horror's Call series, they have interesting plots. Like you read it and you think, oh shit, what happens next? No, the characters are completely artificial. The prose is just objectively bad, even for the style that Gardner is trying to go for. And none of it makes sense on any kind of level. But it's interesting. Egregore is the opposite. You pick up Egregore, you read the book, you feel the pages in your hands, you smell the new book smell. And you look at the prose and it's nice, it reads like Nabokov on a bad day. And you think, wow, this is really cool. The prose is trying so hard to be gothic and horrific. And then you read it and nothing really interesting happens. And you put the book down and then you post a Call of the Crocodile meme on Slashlip. Welcome back to the Unreal Press podcast, which is a form of content creation that Brian and I came up with about, 8 months ago at this point, in order to sell books that we never actually got around to writing. But today we're talking about a book that's actually been written. That's right. Online culture, transgressive fiction, and something from 4chan that is questionably good, by Spencer Weedman, Egregore. And I've got James here to complain about it with me. Welcome back, James.
Glad to be back. You're not doing the alcohol intro anymore?
Oh, no, I am. It's just the alcohol has already introed me pretty thoroughly at this point, so...
All right, well,
Yeah,
I'm
this is like my seventh
company.
whiskey. Wait, no, this is my seventh brandy of the night, so,
Well, you are drinking finer than I am. I've got Coors Light.
I think you've misunderstood me. Yeah, I'm drinking 5 years aged brandy here, but like... I'm not sitting back, with a fucking snifter. I've mixed this shit with Coke. I'm drinking it out of the glass that I scored at yesterday's, as a recording, music festival, which I got free VIP tickets to. I mean, it was an okay festival. I mean, Fuck Off Politica was playing, and, they were a great band like 15 years ago. So, yeah, nothing to do with Gothic horror, which is the content of this episode. Cheers.
So both of us actually read one of the WG authors, the Literally Who's, one Spencer Weedman. This is his debut, right? That's my understanding.
Yes. Yeah, this is like his debut of things you have to pay money for. Really good reading this,
So
actually.
I will give him that this is a good debut. It's not a perfect novel, but I think it's silly to expect someone's debut novel to be perfect.
Yeah, no, this is not shit. I'm actually kind of impressed because I read it and I'm thinking, look, standards of writing on 4chan are dog shit. Like everyone, talks about the same 6 posts on /B. They're like legendary parts of our culture. And, people point to writing general for, where the real shit that's happening outside of academia, the preservation of the West. No, fuck off, it's terrible. So this being, readable was a really pleasant surprise.
So there's plenty of readable stuff. Weedman, I think, was definitely striving for a higher level of prose than you would find in market fiction. And he definitely wanted to give the text a gothic tone. That's why he sells it as a gothic horror novel. I was talking with someone else, I wish I could remember who, and they kind of put it correctly. This reads like he just read 5 Nabokov books and really liked them. And I think that person may have been saying that as an insult, but I think that's actually, well, he did exactly what he was trying to do because he was trying to give that tone. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's what I really stuck out to me when I read the book. Granted, I was having my own like personal fiasco with tulpas at the time. Never make them, it's not worth it. They will not fuck you. Anyway, the point is that I read it and it really just seemed like the text was trying. Now that's how I describe the text. It tries. Occasionally it succeeds brilliantly. A lot of the time it just works, but you can tell that Weedman is leaning hard into Nabokov, like he's got the whole elbow stuck in there. Which is kind of weird for me because Nabokov is not a Gothic author. He does not write Gothic fiction.
To be honest, I don't think I've read any actual historically acclaimed Gothic fiction. I don't think. So I can't comment on that front.
I mean, I read the Count of Monte Cristo and the Flask of Amontillado, and I read the one with the edgy guy. Yeah, that's not very helpful. Wuthering Heights, yeah, by Bronte. I read that. I actually read that in high school. Not
Wuthering
because I
Heights.
wanted to read it. Yes, Wuthering
Okay, so
Heights. But
strange
because my
aside.
least favorite high school teacher had commissioned me to do a landscape of the heath. So I had to read the book to know what the heath was.
Okay, so LA, as a form of authorial self-flagellation, for research purposes, I am currently reading Twilight. And chapter 2, she's reading Wuthering Heights.
Fucking really, man. Chapter 2, just straight out there, mask off.
You know,
I mean,
we
I
should
kind of
probably
like
do an
Twilight
episode
personally.
on Twilight in a couple weeks when I finish, or after I finish rather. It
Yeah,
is a weird
Twilight was
experience.
unironically good.
Wait, say that again?
Twilight was ironically good. I thoroughly enjoyed Twilight.
I'm only 50 pages in to a 500-page book for preteen girls. I've been able to identify that there are correct story beats. However, there's also all of the boring shit so far.
Look, you know, dude, some kids are like Harry Potter kids, some kids are Twilight kids. I pick my side.
All right, we will talk about it critically another time, but because right now we're supposed to be talking about Egregore, which kind of also has a problem of it has all the interesting story beats, but it also has a lot of kind of drawn out boring beats. Like half the book is part one, and the thing shows up in part two, which means for a horror novel, half the book has no monster, which I think is a genre
Yeah,
flaw.
yeah. For reference, like the first half of the book is so we have a schizo woman, like the personification of slash X,
Yes.
but like with all the, negative sides of slash X highlighted. And she's there. And she's married an architect, which is already, poor life choices. And the dude just is fucking dying of cancer. That's the first half of the book. And I mean, yeah, it's like visceral and real. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Weedman or somebody he knows has died of cancer before. But on the other hand, if you want to read that, one, what the fuck is wrong with you? And two, even if you want to read that, you don't want it stapled onto a Gothic horror novel.
So I think the premise is actually cool. You know, a wife is having a mental breakdown because of the slow, painful death of her husband, and then she breaks through the layer of reality into, a nightmare. But we may kind of put one foot into the nightmare and then didn't want to step into it. But that's kind of how I want to sum it up.
Yeah, that's a pretty different interpretation of what I had, because my personal theory about this book, spoilers, as if anyone cares about spoilers on this podcast, is that Tim, the husband, the architect, actually dies halfway through the book. And the rest of the book is just Sandra's, the ex-chick, mental breakdown. Because that's when the thing turns up. And that's also when the prose gets weird. Because like it's sort of being Nabokov the whole way through, but then it's being Nabokov on like full synesthesia mode, like mask off Nabokov. And it just keeps on like that. Even when Tim comes back, still whack. I think Tim died halfway through, and the rest of the book is just her derailed into insanity.
Maybe I'm just not getting the story, but I understand all the story beats that allude to that theory that you have. But that means that part three makes literally no sense when he's back and interacting with his kids. Like, a good 70 pages or something of the book is denouement of after the monster. How do you explain that?
Well, what I'd say is like if you just look at the prose, which is what I've said, it keeps getting fantastical and weird shit keeps happening. Like at one point, Tim just slices himself in half and disappears. Sandra finds this room with a heartbeat, weird shit like that. So that's why I'm thinking like,
Oh, sure. She
yeah,
totally like the architect puts himself into the house. He puts his soul and passion. And she literally interprets that, and that's all, fine,
it's like the house is the Egregore.
right? But like, if you want to conjecture that he's dead halfway through, which makes complete sense because there was nothing in the text implying he took the psychedelics. That was like an after the fact justification, which does imply that it didn't actually happen. But you'd have to then conjecture that their kids aren't real. But then that doesn't explain her mother's behavior.
Yes. Well, what I'd say primarily is I just go full hog and say that Sandra is an unreliable perspective character. Like, you cannot rely on anything she says. The book isn't third person, by the way, but it's limited. And so
Oh,
that's
she's
why I'd say, like,
absolutely unreliable. 100%.
when Sandra's mother takes the kids, Sandra doesn't get the kids back. No, like, all of that is imagined. The kids are gone halfway through the book, probably when Tim dies. And the rest of the book is just Sandra trapped in a house, like starving to death. Probably ate the psychedelic antidepressants that were meant for Tim anyway. Why the shit gets so weird. And, when they wear off.
Yeah, so there's probably something like the word of God storyline that Weedman would probably say is that she thought she was taking the sleeping pills that she was given and actually took the shrooms.
Yeah. You see shit like that when you're on shrooms. It's not good shit.
Maybe I don't think shrooms does that. I believe LSD might. I can't really speak to that because that's a felony where I live. I don't know about South Africa, but I don't think he dies halfway through. I think he's in a catatonic state, and her breakdown is that if he's mentally not there, then he's physically not there. I think that's the nature of her insanity in the correct reading. And her issues with the police are that she's telling, she calls up the police and goes, "My husband's gone," and then they just like show up. They look around for like other stuff because that's a correct police search. But realistically, they show up and they just, find her husband catatonic for a few days. Maybe that also doesn't make sense. That's arguably one issue with the book is I don't think
it's plausible at least.
Perfectly accurate explanation of the plot.
I mean, on the one hand, yeah, I'd say that's pretty harsh criticism, is that you cannot find a way to make Egregore read sense consistently. It's like, no matter who you try and agree with, something gets batshit wrong. But on the other hand,
don't call that a flaw.
That's also just really annoying to read.
I mean, you can find it annoying to read, but it was obviously intentional by Weedman, because the entire premise is Sandra going insane. Like, couldn't it not make sense?
Yeah. It's not a fun insane. It's no. What I'm saying is that it's like a Watsonian versus Doyleist interpretation. In like the Watson idea is, yes, Sandra is insane. This is why the plot happens. But my complaint is there is no Doyleist explanation. There's no way to step outside and say, no, this is what actually happened, or this is why it happened. No, the answer is the same throughout, because Sandra is insane.
Well, there is the incredibly thinly spread narrative that there is no family, there is no house, there is no pancreatic cancer. She has spent the entire story in a psych ward.
Fortunately, that is plausible, because it's like outright canon that she has done time before. Like, this woman has been institutionalized.
Yeah, we could probably get into some real stretched explorations of does T and D, the what she calls her kids, mean something. But when I was reading, nothing symbolic occurred to me about the kids' names, so I couldn't tell you there.
Yeah, they're just Zoomers. That's it. That's it.
Pretty much. Explicitly playing Minecraft, right? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, I was imagining both of them with that curly ass fade, fluffy top knot Zoomer haircut they all have.
For real.
No cap, brother.
I'm not saying
no
stuff like that. We're done with the Zoomers. We are too old to be Zoom.
Yeah, no, it's like, I remember I was there, and like I saw the original Tom and Jerry shit as reruns, syndicated. They still had that in my country.
So both of us agree that this is well-written prose. It's compelling character stuff, and it does leave you thinking and all that. As we mentioned when we were talking before the recording started, did the book scare you? Did Egregore scare you? Because this is a Gothic horror novel. Did it evoke horror when you were reading it?
Yes, twice. I mean, as I've already said, I've got experience with tulpas, largely negative, so that kind of thing was just like innately disturbing to me. It's like once you get the trauma, once you get the phobia, you read and you think, oh, well, this dredges up stupid history. But no, like things people actually can empathize with, assuming you have that facility. The shadow play. I found that to be pretty disturbing. Like when Sandra, goes around the kids' rooms and they keep whining to her, "There's a man in my room. There's a man in my room." And she just goes in and it's a shadow.
So weird. When the first time that happened, literally put yourself in Sandra's shoes, or I guess in her bed sheets. not kinky. Her child comes into her room and says, "There's a man in my bedroom." He's not saying there's a monster. He's saying there's a man, and she doesn't get out of
Yeah.
bed to look.
Well, I mean, okay, two things, man. One, she's on sleeping pills, and those
No,
work.
she wasn't at that
Prescription
time.
shit works.
First time she wasn't, which is why I think the word of God. I think that scene is arguably the strongest evidence that the kids aren't real.
Right. I mean, that's what your parents are like. Like, if you said, "Help, there's a man in my room," they would get up and check.
Well, when I grew up, my bedroom was all of 3 steps from my parents' bedroom. So it would require them to stand up and turn on a light switch. So yes, they would have taken a look.
Mine wouldn't have. It's like, I just said, like, dude, go back to bed. You're dreaming.
In my mind, the difference is the kid didn't say there's a monster in my room, which I could probably excuse a parent saying, "Oh, there's no such thing as monsters." He specifically said there was a person in my room because break-ins are a thing. That is completely reasonable.
Yeah, but like also, if a dude breaks into your house, he's going to be making noise. He's going to like be taking the kid as a hostage. He's going to be stealing shit. He's not just going to stand there and say, "Hey, what's up, kid? Better tell your parents about me." Who does that?
People high on LSD?
I think we have very different break-ins, man.
Well, we are on very different sides of the planet.
Yeah, but anyway,
Now, admittedly, I've never had a break-in.
yeah, I have. They don't just sit there and let you call for help.
I don't know. I chalked it up to like the kid. Like you don't expect the kid to give you like a perfect explanation.
Well, I mean, either way, I found the shadow play that ensued to be kind of disturbing. It's
Oh,
like there's
for
just
sure.
a shadow on the wall, no light source, nothing, and it just starts disintegrating, exploding. Like you can see its invisible pain. Like, what the fuck, man? That's weird.
I would be lying if I said I did not wake up in the middle of the night and be reminded of the shadow sticking its like hundreds of fingers around the door jamb trying to pry it open that woke Sandra up. I did wake up and go, damn,
Oh yeah,
that
that
was
was a
fucking
good one.
terrifying. However, my door is open, so I'm going back to bed.
Yeah, no. I mean, I keep my door shut at night because, you live with other students. You don't want people like banging on your door saying, hey, LA, do you have food for me? I know it's 2 a.m. and I'm a drunk asshole you've had one conversation with before, but I kind of need a sandwich. That happens. That happens.
One benefit of having a dog.
So yeah, I was more scared of that happening than, the fingers. You were saying?
I live alone, me and my dog. That does give a certain peace of mind that if something was in the house, the dog would let me know. However, the only thing she has alerted me to date is she doesn't necessarily like the music I play. She wakes up from naps when like choruses happen in songs, freaked out, tail tucked, barking, running from window to window to see what this strange voice is.
Yikes.
But if there were a break-in, I trust that the Labrador would at least let me know to go get the gun.
Oh, there you go. That's all you need with a guard dog. The guard dog doesn't have to fight the guy. It just needs to be a good alarm system.
Yep. And as a good old American, when spooky monsters show up, the answer is shooting it to death.
Yeah.
I don't know about Europe or South Africa, what you do with your cryptids. We shoot them.
Well, I mean, in SA, we firstly plan for this shit. Like, if we get cryptids, you see, we stick a couple of bricks under the bed. Like, pop up the bed frame, the bed stand on bricks. So it's like a foot off the ground. Because you see, our cryptids are really short. The Tokoloshi is short. He's a little guy. So if he breaks into your room and the bed's off the ground, he can't molest you or anything because, he can't reach. That's how you defeat the Tokoloshi. Seriously.
Hold on, you have actual South African cryptids?
Yeah, dude. Doesn't everyone have cryptids?
I mean, America has the Native American monsters like the Wendigo and the Chupacabra and Bigfoot. Although, is Bigfoot real? Those aren't. I don't know. As an American, those are boring. Even though the Wendigo is like actually horrifying if you think about it. We should talk sometime. I want to know about South African.
So I'm not an expert on cryptids. I mean, I grew up overseas, and like, also if you're white, you sort of have natural cryptid immunity in Africa. The downside is that you also have insurance, and people think, hey, White chick's got insurance. We can just take her shit, fuck her up. The doctors will pay the bills. This is like logic people have, because you can just get a new camera.
Dude, I hate that stupid logic about, oh, they have insurance, it's fine. I hate that so much.
Insurance never fucking pays out. You can have your arms ripped off and the insurance will look at you and say, but you can still sort of walk around in your legs.
I had a 20-year-old roof get destroyed in a windstorm. Insurance covered half the roof. That's what insurance covered.
Shit, man. That's wild. I mean, that's actually worse than, the cryptids. I mean, at least with a cryptid, you got a fighting chance if you got the right muti, you got the right magic, you got a machete. Down here we call them pangos. You got a panga and you got a pistol. I mean, cryptid, that's a 50-50. But like windstorms, man, can't shoot down a windstorm.
I mean, Florida man tries to. But this year is actually going to be the death of me financially because of weather. The wind destroyed my roof. The wind is going to destroy a tree that I need to get taken down. And the only quote I have so far is for a $10,000 removal. The winter is going to break my furnace again. I am suffering.
Fuck's sakes, man. That's actually kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't have a $1 million haunted mansion to move to like Sandra and Egregore.
Yeah, because that's a plot point that happens that kicks off part 2 is the architect, as architects, apparently do, they secretly design their dream house and their firm pays for the entire thing because they've been such a good boy. And so they make it like this kick-ass haunted mansion with, crawl spaces and secrets and weird elevators that go diagonally, like secret sunrooms.
All right, to be fair, that'd be really cool.
And I was just getting flashbacks the whole time to the, the Grout mansion from VTM Bloodlines. I was just imagining that as where they lived.
Are you saying you wouldn't build that house? Like, come on, the house sounds fucking cool.
I would not build that house.
Not in a haunted Egregore sense, but like...
I don't want fucking crawl spaces, man.
Maybe I'm just that kind of guy. Maybe I resonate with Tim. But I would have designed that house. That house would be awesome.
Yeah, like, look, back in like 2016 when it was socially acceptable for a millennial to play Minecraft, I didn't build shit. I didn't build jack. I just, had a bed in my inventory and walked around killing everything I saw. Villager, iron golem, pig, sheep. Fuck it, I don't care. Slaughtered.
I am still mad that virtual reality Minecraft doesn't let you, like, you can't walk as fastly. There's no sprint button in VR Minecraft. It also doesn't show where your calculated footprint is. So I kept falling off cliffs because there's no way to crouch without falling.
Huh.
Yeah, no, VR absolutely destroys the entire function of the game. I got so mad every time I died because if you physically move, it doesn't relocate your feet in the game. So, like, you can be standing, you can look down and see ground, and then you're plummeting through the wall to your death.
That's kind of fucked up, man.
VR Minecraft should have been awesome. Like, exploring an entire world and building something, you're in the virtual reality. And then you just, like, fucking walk into lava because you thought you were standing on stone, but actually your feet were 5 feet to your right.
Right. I mean, I never played VR Minecraft personally. I kind of over Minecraft.
I had such high hopes, and then I don't think I managed to last 2 hours. Like, I had just gotten diamonds and then lost them in lava, and then I uninstalled the game.
But anyway, yes, there's this haunted house in Egregore. And what stuck out to me about the house so much is that it's this classic Gothic horror trope, is that the house is weird. You see the same thing in Wuthering Heights. I mean, you say the same thing in Color of Yellow. The house is always weird. I mean, look, even Lovecraft, Dreamer's the Witch House. There's always a fucked up house somewhere. I'm just thinking, like, it's a Gothic horror novel, not because it has the atmosphere. It doesn't have the Gothic atmosphere or, the horror atmosphere. It's a Gothic horror novel because it has Gothic tropes and it has horror tropes. And what sort of strings the book together is the fairly competent Nabokov-esque prose.
So I'll give you that, but I will counter with the biggest thing that I think Weedman needs to do better with his second book, because I actually liked reading Egregore. I just didn't find it to be scary. I didn't think it was correctly labeled as a horror novel. for basically 2 issues in this whole thing, because the prose was in tone, and that's fine. I read a wide variety of prose. The way you write is dependent on what you're trying to convey. So I was fine with Nabokov prose, but I did not like the way he did his chapter breaks.
Right.
He had these like huge, crazy, dramatic revelations, and then he would just continue the scene for another page of like, and then Sandra had left the room and backed away and went to her bed and laid down and slept. And it's just like, that's the chapter break.
Yeah, it's like I don't need to be told that she, reacts to the revelation. I'm busy reacting to the revelation myself.
And I feel like he just didn't have a beta reader tell him that was a problem, because it's super fixable. It's arguably the easiest thing to fix.
Change where the chapter begins and ends.
Yeah. You can even include her backing away as the start of the next chapter, as, tension building to the next point. But by putting it just before the end, every point that was supposed to be scary ended up kind of not being scary, because, the next paragraph, she finds out that this dripping mass of black ink on the wall, ripping parts of its flesh apart. Oh, well, there's nothing actually there. It is just a shadow. I've determined this in the next paragraph.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like, she gets scared, she escapes, she goes to bed, and that's it. It's like, well, this would be a cool short story, but it's not that.
Also, when you were reading part 2, which really is the horror aspect of the book, did you understand what the hell?
Yeah, it's like part 2 is actually Egregore, the book.
Which should have been way more percentage of the novel, in my opinion. But did you understand what the monster wanted? Like, I think it was pretty obvious pretty quick that it was Tim, and Tim was confused.
Yes.
But I'm not afraid of a confused monster.
Yeah, it's like, just thought monster, okay, it's, it's the thing. It's literally called the thing, by the way. It's not, my name for it. It's not like the guy or the dude. It's literally the thing. I just thought, I don't even think the thing knows what it wants. It's just fucking around.
Yeah, it's almost like it was having a really bad LSD trip. But, like, it was interesting.
That's your main antagonist. It's a really high guy. Not even on, like, scary high, like on bath salts. It's just tripping.
The tension and the story arc was really carried by Sandra's descent into insanity and trying to guess how unreliable she was, which can make for an interesting story. I just don't think it makes for a scary story. But maybe I just didn't get it, because I don't think I've ever read a good horror novel.
That's such a subjective thing. I read a pretty good horror novel a while back. Granted, it was a Goosebumps book. It was, the one where the kids find the secret other school. Everything is in black and white, and the sky is black. All the kids are gone, fucked up from having their color stolen. That really fucked with me when I was like 12.
I read Goosebumps.
I think that's the best horror novel I ever read. I read it again when I was like 21, and it was actually still kind of disturbing. I don't know, I was high, but
Well, I'm sure that helped.
That helps with a lot of things, man. I rewatched Love, Death, and Robots after having taken an edible, and it was actually good.
Did you ever watch the anime Space Dandy?
I did. I like dude's haircut. That was a good haircut. It had energy to it.
If you were sober when you watched Space Dandy, you watched it wrong. That show is a completely different experience the higher you are. And I can say that because it is legal to be high where I live. Highly recommend it.
Oh, that's relief. Yeah, I would totally recommend it too. It's such a blazing awesome show. Yeah, you feel me? No, but speaking of things that actually worse if you're high, Penny and Stocking with God Above. Fucking amazing
Really?
anime. My 5th favorite anime of all time.
That gets worse?
It's just not good if you're high.
Why?
No, because like when you're sober and you watch it, you think, wow, man, this is really cool. The characters are sexy, and the antics, it's cool. It's like a dark and edgy Powerpuff Girls. But when you get high, you're just sort of staring at it and you think, what the fuck? The panties are a gun? That's weird. It's extremely disconcerting. And like then the art style changes and you're just like, wait, what? You can't change the art style.
They physically made models of various set pieces in the show and literally blew them up with actual explosives. How can you dislike that show?
I mean, I liked it sober.
You know, that's one flaw with Egregore. Nothing blows up. 0 out of 10. Go watch more M. Night Shyamalan movies, Mr. Weedman. Highly disappointed.
But like also, unironically, nothing blows up, and that's a bad thing because the story never gets super high stakes. I mean, the kids are literally taken out of the picture for the climax. It's like, Weedman, like, kill one of your characters. Cripple Sandra, like rip her hearts out, rape her, something, make me think, okay, now this shit's for real. But she just gets chased around by a weird gribbly thing for a while. I mean, like, I've seen Shoggoths. I've seen Shoggoth R34. That doesn't phase me anymore.
Dude,
Like,
there
do
is
something with it.
literally a manga right now that the premise seems to be, it just started. The premise is like a Shoggoth ate my girlfriend and now wants to have sex with me as as my girlfriend. I need to track that down just to confirm that that's actually the premise. Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that's the premise. But yeah, it's like nothing blows up in Egregore, and that's to its active detriment because, as fancy as the prose is, we read Nabokov, who Weedman is giving a rusty trombone to this whole book, and we read Nabokov and we see, okay, Pale Fire, now that's real schizo energy. That's like some serious batshitness. Lolita is Lolita, and Ardo, there's like actual incest in Ardo. But with this, there's nothing that's really, super transgressive or taboo that merely makes you stand back and think, okay, now this is worth getting purple prose about. You can't write purple prose about like a dude making a sandwich.
They make a lot of sandwiches in this book. Looking back on it, I actually really sympathize with the police officers. Just keep showing up. I think this is the only horror novel you're likely to read where the character actually calls the police for help and they reliably show up.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be hilarious if you just had a horror novel and the character calls the police and the police show up and shoot the bad guy, and that's just the bad guy's dead now.
I mean, the thing is, that's like a legitimate ending. You could have the stakes of a story built around what does she have to do to contact the police, and then depending on what city you're in, that's between a 5-minute response time and a 25-minute response time.
Wow, the police come that quickly where you're on. That's impressive.
There are areas of town where you can expect a 5-minute response time. We have shot spotters for.
No, I mean like in 25 minutes. They'll come in 25 minutes.
Every time I've called the police, which I believe is twice, I called the police for shots fired. It was maybe a 10 to 15-minute wait time.
That's crazy, man. Down here, it's like a 35, 40-minute wait. Like if you really want to get them to come over, you've got to make a noise complaint. Somebody's playing the beatbox too loud. That gets them.
Oh, don't give me that shit rhyme. Jesus Christ. Yes, you call the police if you think someone is firing a gun into an apartment. Jesus Christ.
No, you don't. That's like attempted murder. Do you want people to die, dude? You don't call the police. The police will just, actually kill people.
Yes, I watch police activity on YouTube as well. However, back to Egregore.
Yes, the cops in Egregore are like actually good cops, and they help and they advance the plot, and it's completely useless because, as we've established, like the big bad evil guy is either completely in Sandra's head or is just really high.
So perhaps what the next question is that truly needs to be answered is Mr. Weedman needs to be compared against the other literally who horror author that we all know. Is this
book better than Call of the Crocodile?
Yes, I want to know because I have not actually read any of the Call series yet.
Okay, is this book better than the Call of the Crocodile? This is the opening clip of this episode. I'm saying it now. I mean, frankly, it's about the same. It just goes in a completely different direction. It's like the Horror's Call series, they have interesting plots. Like you read it and you think, oh shit, what happens next? No, the characters are completely artificial. The prose is just objectively bad, even for the style that Gardner is trying to go for. And none of it makes sense on any kind of level. But it's interesting. It's fun. Egregore is the opposite of that. You pick up Egregore, you read the book, you feel the pages in your hands, you smell the new book smell. and you look at the prose and it's nice. It reads like Nabokov on a bad day. And you think, wow, this is really cool. The prose is trying so hard to be gothic and horrific. And then you read it and nothing really interesting happens. And you put the book down and then you post a Call of the Crocodile meme on Slashlit.
So, does that mean that you encounter someone on the street and they go, man, I really want to read some transgressive fiction. Recommend me a horror book because that's my genre of choice. I really like Stephen King, but I want to read something from a crazy internet person from 4chan. Which one are you recommending them?
Like, I mean, obviously, realistically, I'd be very impressed if somebody approached me in the street, figured out that I use 4chan solely based on my appearance and walking gait, and then said, hey, you look like somebody who can give me a book recommendation. But unfortunately, this has actually happened to me before, and I recommended them Crawl of the Crocodile shortly after recommending them my own books, Sociopath and Shaman and Shah of Krate. And I did that because in Call of the Crocodile, it's not just a book, it is a meme. And the thing with memes is, you read it just so you can get on the in-joke. I'd recommend Egregore to somebody who actually wants, unironically, good prose out of 4chan, and somebody who's interested to see what a modern take on Gothic literature is. But I wouldn't recommend it as a horror story. You can do a lot better if you actually want to be scared or, disturbed or terrified. If you just want to see pretty prose and somebody make surface level references to esoterica and prove they've been on /X once or twice and had a history of mental health problems, Egregore is cool, but it's not scary.
Well, I agree with your assessment of Egregore. I can't comment on whether Call is better because obviously I haven't read that. I'm very suspicious of Gardner because he's never shared any of his writing samples in any of the Discord servers I share with him. I'm not upset that Egregore is my introduction to Gothic horror. I've read cosmic horror because I've read everything that H.P. Lovecraft has put out. That's about it. It is definitely unexplored territory for me, which I think let me come in with a more open mind to it. And I kind of came out going, that was a character drama. Had this been labeled a Gothic character drama, I probably would have liked it quite a bit more because it would have set the expectations correctly.
Yeah, that's what I found is it's just Gothic. You don't need to say this is a horror novel. It's a Gothic novel. That's what it is. It's really the closest thing I can actually compare this to is House of Leaves. And I'm not just saying that because both of them have a house, a romance, and a weird fucked up monster that I don't think actually kills anyone. But because it's fundamentally a drama with horror trappings. It uses like the horror as a metaphor to explain what personal bullshit the characters are going through. It in itself is not using the horror as a main thrust.
Yeah, I don't think that can even be argued because part 2 starts on page 84 and part 3 is 152, so it's 70 pages. It's 70 pages of a 212-page book. When 1/3 of the book, not even, is horror, like even attempting to be horror, I don't think you can really call it a horror novel.
That's like the problem is that it's trying to be 2 books at once, and the tragic thing here is that they're both somewhat decent books. I think if you release chapter or /part 2 separately as a horror novella, just about this woman in the house being chased by this weird thing and she's guarding her mental sanity. She's waiting for the cops to turn up and kill it. She's trying to survive against herself and the fucked up whatever. That could be a fun short story. But the problem is it doesn't excel in the context of character drama because it's just weird then. It's like, just get the fuck on with it. You're not progressing or developing the characters after we've seen a thing once and we've gone through the whole chase. Because we have the Scooby-Doo chases like 3 times.
Yeah. The cycling of the monster being there and the monster not being there, that feels like it should have been correct to do it that way. But every time that she woke up the next morning and made sandwiches, instead of giving us a breath of anticipation, it was just kind of like, oh, I guess I'm not really held in tension right now.
Yeah, it just resets the tension. I mean, yeah, if there were escalating stakes, like Sandra, makes a sandwich and she eats it with wide eyes, just staring at the weird passages in the walls, waiting for the thing to come back and, molest her. Yeah, that'd be cool. but she just eats the sandwich, has half a normal day, complains about, the pandemic. Because this is like written during the pandemic, both in real life and in set.
Oh yeah, I wanted to
It's
bring
just
that
too
up.
soon for
That's
that.
so weird.
Too fucking soon for that.
Like every character that shows up is like wearing a mask and fidgeting with it, and like Sandra and Tim never have a mask on.
I mean, based.
I feel like they mentioned halfway through that the kids were on Zoom school.
Yeah, they're on online school, but I also just think with it, the book did not benefit by being written in COVID because it didn't adequately explore anything during the pandemic. And I think because it's so close to home, I mean, some places like Emirates still have restrictions, even as of recording, that unless you're, really talking about the pandemic as the main focus, it's an uncomfortable reminder of something we went through very closely. And, some people died, some people were minorly inconvenienced. But it's like, it's not something we really want to see in fiction. It's not escapist anymore. And it's not a commentary either. It's just there.
There was one half-dropped plot thread because the reason she couldn't get the home security recordings was because she called for customer service and they're like, sorry, due to COVID, we have a 3-week delay, which there's no fucking way a security company responds to help, I've had a break-in with, sorry, bitch, you have a 3-week delay. There's no way that happens.
It's not Mask Corp saying, sorry, go away, we don't care. You don't do that.
Right. Like, that probably would have been better handled of, like, a hold time of, like, oh, it's a 1 hour hold time. Then, like, an hour later, it's still a 1 hour hold time. And then, she's literally on the phone all day trying to get help. And then they just, like, hang up on her because it's 4 p.m. And therefore, their responsibilities are absolved.
Yeah.
Because that would have created a thing of, well, now she has to survive the night again, and then she has to call them again the next day. She'll try and get the instant their phone lines are active, and there could have been maintained tension like that. But she literally just instantly gave up because she's completely insane.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a cool idea, but it doesn't have enough thought put into the implications of what is life in the pandemic actually like for it to really come together. I mean, the first time I saw, that the doctor was wearing his mask, I thought, yeah, a doctor wears a mask so he doesn't, get spit on anything he's, doing surgery on. It's just a stereotypical image of a doctor to communicate the scene. It wasn't until like halfway through the book I really realized, shit, it's COVID.
So another thing that could have happened but didn't happen was COVID was causing delays to cancer treatment. And the cold open of the book is essentially the architect collapsing in pain with incredibly florid purple prose that, by chapter 3, I assumed I was getting a Kafka transformation right then and there. But then he just puts the brakes and goes, actually, all those esoteric descriptors I was using to flex my writing muscles, those were nothing more than esoteric descriptions. And there's now 8 months of them, crankily living their lives until they get to the house.
Yeah, that's just really irritating. And also with esoterica, as somebody who's, done the classic mistake of get mildly into esoterica, have weird, crazy mental shit happen, and then very quickly decide, actually, I'm kind of fine with materialism. It's the most basic bitch-ass esoterica. It's like, oh, you read the Kybalion. Oh, you read Hegel and understood it. It's like all of that stuff. It's just name-dropping things you read on X. And on the one hand, yes, it proves that Sandra is a suit because Sandra is a suit, but at the same time, it's not flex in that sense because, like, even a suit reads one thing that's actually out there. Sandra doesn't.
Like at the beginning of this podcast, I said that it felt like Egregore put one foot into the nightmare and then didn't want to put the second foot in. Because in part 3...
Yeah, I got cold feet.
Part 3 is Tim speculating about the meaning of the trip he had. Unfortunately, it wasn't clockwork elves. Apparently, he saw angels, and then learned nothing, which is a big anticlimax.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of hilarious just in the scope that he has this trip. He encounters the divine, and the divine just sort of calls him a wanker, and he fucks off. But on the other hand, with all the build-up of the thing, we'd expect some kind of metaphysical explanation for why we can suddenly do this back.
Yeah, I was expecting some form of revelation that permanently leaves Sandra insane because, like basically red pilling her on reality of once she understands this true aspect of esoterica, she finds a nugget of truth beyond traditional human understanding, and then she's permanently detached because she can't go back to the old paradigm. That's where I thought the whole thing was going.
Yeah, and we sort of get that in the very last bit because she sees, oh, there's weird shit in the house IRL, but at the same time, it's not mind blowing enough to really think, okay, this cool David Lynch ending was worth it. No, it's just, huh.
Yeah, so overall, like I said at the beginning, it's not a perfect book. It's a debut novel. You don't expect perfection out of a debut novel.
Yeah.
If I wasn't so swamped on backlog, I'd probably be saying, yeah, I'd read the next one, to be honest. If Weedman says, you know what, I agree with these criticisms, I'm going to change accordingly. Uh, any author that thinks I'm wrong and wants to prove me wrong or something, like I'll just declare, then therefore I know I'm not going to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a literally who from 4chan, and he's a fairly cool guy because he mailed me a copy of his book from the first printing that has the screwed up cover that he changed after feedback on 4chan. So I managed to get the book from him.
As we know, we factor feedback from 4chan into our lives.
But I'm a little upset with him because he mailed me a copy of his book for a review and he didn't sign it. I didn't even think I would have to ask him to do that.
You got cucked so hard. You read his fucking book and you don't even get his signature. That's why I got an online copy.
It just speaks to the quality of the author right there. I'm just saying, I have an unsigned author copy. What the fuck? Who does that?
With the fucked up cover and everything. And it's not even a collector's item because you could have just fucked up the cover yourself at this rate.
The cover is not damaged. It's just laid out poorly, according to him. So he gave out some free copies on WG, and there's several people that have read it now who hopefully will want to watch this episode and chill it around a bit and see what we thought compared to what they thought. But yeah, I
swear to God, we could generate dialogue.
I swear to God, if they got signed copies and I didn't, we are re-recording this, and I am doing a much harsher version. I'll make up things to complain about. I'll talk about how bad the scene with Kanye West was.
Yeah, dude, don't get me started on the fucking scene with Kanye West, because, I mean, for reference, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't touched on, like all the mom stuff, which is it's just awkward. We all have a mother like that sometimes, but, like, you don't want to read about it. It's like the pandemic thing. It's too close to home. So, yeah, you got the Kanye thing, you got, like, the one scene in the schoolyard, which is, again, and the pillars. So much the first chapter is taken up by these motherfucking pillars. Not even the pillar men. No, it's just like concrete pillars. It's really weirdly phallic and it's never followed up.
Well, I think that covers everything I had to say in this version of the podcast. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, 8 brandies in. I mean, yeah, closing thoughts. I mean, Egregore is a good book. It's got pretty good prose. Very impressive debut novel from Wright in general, but it fails as a horror novel. So, I mean, you go on Amazon, you change the description, I think you'd probably have a significantly better book. Like, I wouldn't retroactively go into Goodreads and give it another star, but I mean, I would say I would do that, so that would actually happen.
All right, well, excellent talking with you.
Yeah, cool. You too, James. See you next time. But have a fun-filled and exciting life with your dog and body pillow.
I am getting pillows shipped to my house right now. They are not body pillows, though, goddammit.
Well, I mean, yeah, the official sociopath prima donna at the body pillow of Raquel Blackcastle has not been made yet.
You'll have to get back to us on when the release date for that piece of merchandise is.
Inshallah, it will exist.
I may have gone too far in a few places.